Hi, it's Lisa, and in this video we'll cover an overview of the database design process as developed by Michael J. Hernandez. And Michael J. Hernandez is the author of the book Database Design for Mere Mortals. This is the book we're using as a reference in class. So he covers an overview of the database design process in several places, but in particular Chapter 4. You'll also want to take a look at Appendix B, where he covers the process in detail and also visually. So here's the overview of the process. You can see here numbered 1 through 7. The first step he covers is defining a mission statement and mission objectives for the database. And you can take a look at that. That's critically important, but we won't spend any time on it in class. So there's a couple of chapters in the book, in particular the chapters that cover things like the mission statement and the mission objectives that I'll just have you read, but we won't actually draft any of those statements or objectives. Where we pick up is when he discusses analyzing the current database. And then of course we move on to step 3, create data structures, tables, fields, and data types. Step 4, determine and establish table relationships. Step 5, determine and define business rules. Step 6, determine and establish views, and of course Step 7, review data integrity. Now what you'll notice is that he does not mention in name normalization. So you may have heard of normalization, and you know that that's one of the rules of relational database theory. He does indeed normalize tables. If you follow his design methodology, to the T, you will normalize your tables. But he doesn't call out normalization per se. And we'll cover that in a couple of weeks when we go over normalization. Now we're going to cover normalization, and we will cover normalization by calling out normalization and calling out the rules, just because you'll hear others use those terms. So again, step 1 for Hernandez is to develop a mission statement and objectives, and again, take a look at that on your own. Step 2 is to analyze the current database, and of course this means you're going to identify the organization's data requirements, you're going to review the way the organization collects and presents its data, conduct interviews with users and management to determine how they're going to use the database on a daily basis. So in this step, you're going to look at, again, how data is collected, how the information is presented, and conduct interviews. So for example, we looked at the Safeway receipt, right? So that would be an example of how Safeway would want, one example of how they would want to present their data. But of course there are other examples. You might look at forms that the company is using, or you might need to interview. Perhaps the company has no real documents, or it doesn't have a comprehensive list of documents, and so you'll conduct interviews and transcribe what different use cases are for that organization. So you look at a combination of those things in the analysis phase. Okay, so then step 3, once you've analyzed all the data, you then start to create the tables, fields, and data types. And if you want to read more about the overall design process, take a look in Chapter 4. So what we do in this class is we start at the analysis step. So if I'll back up, we're starting here and looking at how data is collected, presented, and we may look at transcriptions of interviews, and from that we then move on to creating the data structures, tables, fields, and data types. And then of course after that we start to look at the rules of relational database design, and then of course the business rules that are specific to an organization that will affect our design. All right, again, about the overall design process, read more about that in Chapter 4 or in the Appendix B. That's it for now.